Lesson 20, The World's Worst Accident, Massacre at Bhopal. In Bhopal, India, it was a quiet December night. The air was cool and still, and the winds were calm. Some city residents were asleep in their homes, but many poor families were sleeping together in tiny hovels or out in the open air. At the train station, homeless families slept in corners and under benches. No one suspected that the night would be different from any other. No one, that is, except for the workers on duty at Bhopal Union Carbide chemical plant, who listened in horror to a deadly hissing sound that signaled Bhopal's doom. Bhopal is the capital city of Madhya Pradesh, a state in central India. About 700,000 people live in Bhopal. Most suffer from overwhelming poverty. Some try to make a living by selling cigarettes or repairing bicycles, but many are beggars who depend on a scant handful of coins to buy food for their families. In 1969, Union Carbide opened a pesticide factory on a 5-acre plot of land just outside Bhopal city limits. Pesticides are poisons that are meant to kill pests such as weeds and insects. The company had the blessing of India's government, which welcomed foreign factories. Factory profits help the country financially. Corporations also hire Indians to work in the plants. By 1984, Union Carbide plant had grown into a huge, expensive facility that spread over 80 acres of the city. The factory was producing and packaging a pesticide called 7. Some people began to worry the residents near the plant might be in danger. One official asked the plant be moved out of city limits. The government fired that official. The plant remained. Around the plant were hundreds of tiny dwellings, shacks, and huts put up by the poor people of Bhopal. Few of these people worked in the factory. Instead, they sold goods to factory workers, did minor repair work, or ran errands. On the evening of December 3, 1984, about 120 employees were still working inside the Union Carbide plant. Some were monitoring the chemical storage tank that contained 45 tons of methyl isosantate, one of the chemicals used to make 7. Methyl isosantate, usually called MIC, is an extremely dangerous chemical. Because it can react with many different substances, it should be handled and stored very carefully. But the Union Carbide plant was not enforcing safety standards. For example, MIC should be kept under refrigeration. The refrigeration unit at the factory was not turned on. Even though the tank had a gauge that measured temperature and pressure, employees didn't pay attention to it because it rarely worked right. Safety devices had been installed to neutralize the gas, but none were operating correctly. At 11 p.m., workers noticed their eyes had begun to water and burn. The tank was leaking. At first, they saw drops of liquid. Eventually, the liquid became a heavy yellow gas. The workers were concerned, but they decided not to deal with the problem after their tea break. When they returned to the tank more than an hour later, they saw the pressure inside had cracked a concrete slab 6 inches thick. A few minutes before 1 a.m., they heard a loud hissing sound. The deadly gas was escaping through a smokestack into the night air. Panic broke out at the plant. Workers began running for their lives. Finally, nearly an hour after the gas started to leak, engineers from another country sealed the broken tank. By that time, however, all the gas had escaped. Heavy gas formed a dense fog that floated close to the ground. It passed over the shacks and huts surrounding the factory and over the railway station. It spread through the city, hovering over shops, temples, and streets. Wherever the cloud passed, it left devastation. Entire families died in their sleep, while cattle and dogs dropped to the ground and died where they lay. M.A. Khan, a farmer who lived close to the plant, was lying in bed when he heard thumping sounds. He went outside and found 2 cows dead on the ground. A third groaned and collapsed as Khan watched. When the farmer's eyes started to burn, he ran inside in fear. Many people in Bhopal thought that an enemy nation had dropped a nuclear bomb. Others thought the poisonous yellow cloud was a sign the world was ending. Thousands of people thronged the streets, some in cars or carts, a few on the backs of cattle, most on foot. Many were already blinded by the gas, and they groped and stumbled their way along crowded roads. Every street was littered with the bodies of people and animals. Some people were lying in gutters in agonized, frozen positions. Hundreds of injured citizens began filling the local hospital and makeshift clinics, their eyes swollen shut, their lungs filled with fluid. Most of the patients died within a few hours. The disaster struck hardest at children and the elderly. Their lungs were either too small or too weak to withstand the poison. By dawn, the death toll was enormous, and by the end of the week, more than 2,500 people had died, and at least 200,000 had been injured. The city of Bhopal was paralyzed, and India was in shock. The accident was the worst industrial disaster in the history of the world. Union Carbide tried to defend its safety policies, but in the end, the company officials admitted the plant's safety was not adequate. One plant employee said he sounded an alarm to warn the city of the accident, but few residents recall hearing it. The company is still involved in billion-dollar lawsuits related to the Bhopal disaster. Still, very little money has actually gone to the victims. Of those injured, 17,000 still suffer from the effects of MIC gas. Many have been permanently blinded or have suffered serious lung damage. Hundreds of women have given birth to babies with deformities. These people hope that someday they will be compensated for their suffering. They know that money will not bring back their health. We never understood why they, Union Carbide, would build a factory containing poison gas close to where people live, one survivor said. They could have gone out in the jungle where no one lives. Now we are mourning our dead.